renting versus buying. It's an old debate. We've actually done a video on it in the past, but this topic has really heated up lately, and I keep seeing a key point that's being missed by people over and over again. I'm gonna get into it in today's video. All that starts now. Like I mentioned, I'm gonna get right into it in this video. A lot of videos make you watch until the end to get to the good stuff. I'll keep the boring stuff, if there is any, towards the end of this video. This video applies to everybody, renting versus buying. Pretty much everybody is an owner or a renter, so I want you to weigh in. I want you to comment and let me know if you rent or buy and what your strategy is and why. I keep seeing the same financial advice over and over again. And by the way, this is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, but there's a topic, renting versus buying, that's been debated quite a bit in the past. And recently, I don't know if you have Netflix or not, but there's a new show or documentary on Netflix. It's called How to Get Rich by Ramit Sethi. Ramit Sethi is kind of one of these financial gurus, kind of reminds me of a Dave Ramsey. He does that Dave Ramsey bit, or at least I think Dave Ramsey was the one that popularized this, which is you take a financial guru and then you take somebody who's very bad at finances and they do some sort of audit and go through all of their clumsy spending, and it's very engaging and relatable for most people. And so you see a lot of that kind of content, that financial guru, financial advice, get your life in financial order content these days. So let me show you a clip. This is just from a couple days ago. This isn't from the documentary How to Get Rich. It's from a podcast that Ramit was on a couple days ago.
You have to run the numbers. And as you and I know, Sam, a lot of times it's like not that great of an investment. Index funds could often, not always, but often outperform.
More often.
Yeah, depending on the city. And like for everybody listening, I've rented for about 20 years. I have made more money renting than I would have owning. And I've rented in San Francisco, New York, LA. In New York, for example, I kept a very close eye on the real estate market. It would have cost me 2.2 times more to own the equivalent unit, same neighborhood, same view, same size, same number of bedrooms, 2.2 times. And so if it was a $3,000 apartment, it would have cost like $6,200, $6,400 a month when you factor in all the phantom costs, interest, opportunity cost, maintenance. I just took the $3,200, I just put in the market and made way more money and less hassle.
All right, and I'm not trying to pick on him, just using him as an example because it's the most recent one that I've seen. I've seen a lot of people make this exact same argument as he's making. And I'll give him the benefit of the doubt with the numbers, mortgage being twice as much as rent payment. We'll get into some of the actual numbers as they relate to Portland in just a moment, but we'll roll with what he said for now. So if you're new to this debate, what are some of the downsides of buying a house? Big one is going to be down payment. Typical down payment is 5 to 20%. So that's a big hurdle for most people. Beyond that, it's going to be maintenance, taxes, unexpected expenses. If you've only ever rented before and you're used to your landlord fixing things, paying to fix things, when you buy a home, you will at some point step into a Home Depot or a Lowe's or some sort of store like that. So for a lot of people buying a home, there are some unexpected costs. Now, what are the benefits of renting? A lot of people say flexibility, just having like a 6-month or 12-month lease as opposed to owning a home that you might have to sell if you want to move. A lot of people claim flexibility is a good reason for renting, but the big one is going to be the one that Ramit mentioned, which is cost. A lot of people say that it costs less money to rent than it does to buy, and the whole crux of the argument for renting as opposed to buying is that you take that excess capital that you have. And Ramit's example, he had an extra $3,000. His mortgage would have been $6,000. His rent was $3,000. You take that excess capital and you use that to invest, and the returns on that investment supposedly will be higher than your equity if you were to have bought a home, sold a home, and then subtracted all of the other costs and taxes and things like that. So full disclosure, I am a licensed real estate broker in the state of Oregon. I am going to be biased. In the state of Oregon, we do not broker rentals, so there is no realtor-renter relationship in the state of Oregon. We only facilitate purchases. And if you're new to this channel and you want to see more of what it's like to live in Oregon, including the process for moving to Oregon, make sure and hit the subscribe button. And as a licensed broker, I would invite you to reach out. If you're thinking about taking the next steps and moving to Oregon, you can call, text, email, or click the link below in the description to schedule a Zoom call with us. All right, so but the problem with this theory that you can get a greater ROI from taking the excess capital that you would have had to put towards your mortgage payment that you can now invest, the problem with that theory is that not everybody is a RELEETE. The rental argument assumes that the renter is going to be proficient at investing, which you can kind of see some of the irony in that. If so many people were good at personal finance and investing, then you really wouldn't have people like Dave Ramsey or RELEETE. There would be no need for their content, and RELEETE should know that as well as anybody. He shouldn't expect the average person to be as good or as diligent about investing as he is. And what type of investing were they talking about? They mentioned index funds. What is an index fund? It's just a series or a bunch of stocks. So instead of buying one stock, maybe buy 100 stocks. So that way you have less volatility, you have less risk. They mentioned 8%. 8% return is generous. We'll give them that, okay. But probably 6 or 7% is maybe a little bit more realistic. And if you had any experiences like I have had in the past few years, the market has been extremely volatile. I don't need to look at my portfolio to know that my real estate has appreciated much more than anything in the stock market. Now, if you're not familiar with the stock market, if you're looking at 5 years or 10 years or the past 50 years, you can pretty consistently expect to get reasonable returns like 6 or 7 or 8%, but it's not a given every year. So the stock market can be volatile even if you do something that's low risk like an index fund. So if you're somebody that's thinking about this strategy as a renter, that's something that you should definitely factor in. And the next thing that is not a given that you have to be able to do in order to make this strategy of renting work is that you're going to have to be a diligent investor. Now, if you think about it, if you think about the past couple of years, times have been tight for a lot of people financially. A lot of people have lost their jobs. When times are tough financially for people and they have a mortgage payment, typically most people are going to scratch and claw to make that mortgage payment. They're going to do what they have to do to make that mortgage payment. In fact, it's so important that most people make their mortgage payment that sometimes the government will come in and help out, which we've seen a lot of mortgage relief over the past couple of years. Now, if you take the renter, take that same example that RELEETE mentioned, the renter that's paying $3,000 a month instead of $6,000 and taking that excess $3,000 and investing. If times get tough, that person loses their job. Are they scratching and clawing to make up that $3,000 and make sure that they're investing that $3,000 a month every single month? Is the government going to be there to subsidize them and potentially make sure that they invest their $3,000 a month if they potentially can't make up that gap for whatever reason? Now, I'm in my 40s, so I've had a couple of decades to witness adults, friends, family, colleagues, people on social media that I don't even know. I've had a couple of decades to witness the financial behaviors of most adults, and I don't think that second case for renting and people always being diligent about investing month in and month out, I don't see that for most people. I think for the average person that may not want to learn personal finance or have to worry about these things, it's much simpler just to make a mortgage payment every month and not have to be a diligent, knowledgeable investor. So the people like RELEETE giving advice to invest with the excess money that they're getting from not having to pay a mortgage, it feels a little bit like it's like a Navy SEAL level workout being prescribed to a lot of people that probably aren't Navy SEALs, a lot of people that are probably beginners. The renting strategy, I think it's possible over time for it to be more optimal than buying. I just don't think it's as pragmatic for most people as they make it seem. I also think investing can be very psychologically tough for a lot of people. Let's take the average home in Portland, Oregon, which is right now about $530,000. You put 20% down, that's $100K, right? So let's say we put that $100K into the market instead of buying a home. Not uncommon for the market, even with something with low volatility, to fluctuate 3, 4, 5% every day. 5% of 100K, easy math, is $5,000. $5,000 is about as much money as the average person makes every month. So for somebody to swing $5,000 and like say lose $5,000 in a day, for people that are looking at their portfolio every single day, psychologically that can be very difficult for some people. Definitely witnessed a lot of that pain over the last few years of friends and family looking at their portfolio that's down 10% in the day. And 10% of 6 or 7 figures is a big number, and it just seems like it's probably not for everybody. Now, for a few numbers as they relate to Portland, the average rent for a 1-bedroom apartment right now is about $1,700. Average rent for a single family 3-bedroom home is $2,700. Average rent for a 4-bedroom home in Portland is just over $4,000 right now. Now, again, if we were to buy a home, let's say an average home, Portland, Oregon, $530,000, we put $100K down, 20% at a 6.5% interest rate. That's a mortgage payment of about $3,100 a month. So going back to what Ramit said about rent being half of what the mortgage is, running numbers seems like that's real tough to do. I don't know what towns or circumstances you would need to pull that off, but if we're really trying to stretch the numbers, the best that I could do would be to say that 100K divided by 30 years, which is the average loan, that's 360 months, that's $300 a month. So let's say our $3,100 mortgage, if we're factoring just monthly in, setting aside that 100K and looking at monthly payment, what add an extra $300, so that takes us to $3,400. Taxes and expenses, maintenance expenses every year, gonna be a good close to $400 or $500. So let's just call it $4,000 a month to purchase an average home in Portland, Oregon. At best, you're really not going to be apples to apples twice as much as what your rent is going to be. So we should take that into account as well, that people like Ramit, you're not always going to be able to find some sort of rental circumstances that's going to be 50% of what your mortgage would be. So in conclusion, I think that what Ramit is saying and what others have said about renting can be true. You can potentially get a greater ROI by spending less money on rent, investing that money at every month than you would if you bought a home and sold that home and realized the equity later. But I think for most people, that's just not going to be the case. Again, I'm a licensed broker, so I can be biased, but that's just my take. Let me know what you think. I always like to hear different perspectives, or if you have some sort of circumstance or strategy or plan that you want to share with us in the comments about renting versus buying. We'd love to hear what you think. Make sure and subscribe. If you've gotten this far in the video, you definitely want to keep watching our videos and subscribe. And again, as a licensed broker, if you want to take the next steps, if you want to call, text, email, or schedule a Zoom call with us, click the link in the description below. Until next time, take care, everyone.